You're listening to Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon. Hey, what's up, World Wide Web? This is Brandon.
And this is Alex.
And this is Adam.
Hey.
That's
nice. He's back. He's back.
He is back.
And we're filmmakers.
And we're also drinking bourbon.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Adam over there.
All right, let's see what we got here.
That's delicious.
That's not bad.
Splendid.
You guys want to know what that is?
It tastes yellow to me.
You want to know what that is?
Yellow.
Go for it.
That, my friend, is Four Roses Bourbon. It's the yellow label, 1888. Now, we've been teasing on this show something big,
We have.
and the listeners don't have to wait anymore.
No, that we should tell them right
The
now.
time is now.
Time is now.
This week kicks off Bourbon Heritage Week for the month. Sorry, Bourbon Heritage Month.
The full month is Bourbon
A
Heritage.
full month, not a week.
Yeah.
For the month of September.
I feel like there needs to be a fanfare. There needs to be like
Yes.
Something.
A
And
choral
I've got a
affair.
surprise for you guys.
For me?
I've got a surprise for all of you and the listeners. Waiting on the line right now is one of our representatives from Four Roses Bourbon, all the way from Louisville, Kentucky.
Boom.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Sweet.
Let's see if we can dial him in. All right, let's see. Dave, the audio engineer, can you dial him in? Boop 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 boop.
is that like a
Modem? It's like
fire truck.
hey, Dan, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, how's it
y'all
going,
doing?
buddy?
Hey, Dan.
Okay. Just got through with the barrel selection, so
Oh,
I'm only about 90 proof now. So
there you go.
So, Dan, tell our listeners, who are you and where are you? And tell us a little bit about why you're talking to us.
well, I'm a regional sales manager for Four Roses. This is my 36th year in the business.
Whoa.
So I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of legends in the business over the years. Booker Noe, Julian Van Winkle, Jimmy Russell at Wild Turkey. So I've been around the block a little bit. So
Nice.
and I've been working for Four Roses now directly for about 6 years. It'll be 6 years in October.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Excellent.
That is just awesome. Now, for our listeners, explain a little bit about the significance of bourbon and the significance of Kentucky, and why are most of the distilleries in Kentucky? Is it Louisville? Is it Bourbon County? Talk a little bit about that and bring some knowledge to the listeners.
Well, one of the reasons it's centered in Kentucky is because of the Whiskey Rebellion right after the Revolutionary War. The government, U.S. government, decided to tax spirits, and it was mostly centered in Pennsylvania at that point.
Right.
So, but of course, one of the reasons the war was fought was taxation without representation. So all of the distillers in Pennsylvania decided to rebel. Well, but the one thing that they did, George Washington sent troops in, and they were smart enough not to fight, so they came across the mountains into Kentucky. They just decided to move west so they wouldn't have to pay taxes on what they distilled. So that's one of the reasons the industry is centered in Kentucky. The other
Rebels.
thing is the water, limestone water. It filters all the iron out of the water. And the other thing that they had going for us here was the river system. We had a transportation system, which a lot of the bourbon was floated down the Ohio and then Mississippi River to New Orleans, various stops along the way. So
Nice.
confluence of different factors. You had corn. You also had the corn here in Kentucky.
Right.
It was plentiful. So
Wonderful. Well, that's a great...
talent versus plus the corn plus the delivery system.
And that's a great base of knowledge. Now,
Perfect.
we have had ongoing conversation on the show because I've done some research on the internet, and I don't know if it's true or not, and I'm hoping you can bring clarity to it. For one, I think that there is a difference between bourbon and whiskey. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, whiskey is a generic term. Bourbon whiskey has to be conform to a specific recipe and formula.
Okay.
It's got to be a minimum of 51% corn in
All
the
right.
mash
Right
bill.
on.
It's got to be aged in a new charred oak barrel.
Okay.
And you can't add any coloring or flavoring to it.
Okay.
Otherwise, you lose that designation.
Wow.
Now, does it also have to be made in the U.S.?
Has to be made in the U.S. A lot of people think that bourbon has to be made in Kentucky, but there was a proclamation in the early 60s by a U.S. congressman, got it passed into law, that bourbon is a product of the United States. So it can be made anywhere in the U.S.
Wow.
But again, I think one of the key issues from most Kentucky distillers is the water source. You've got to have iron-free water to make good whiskey of any sort.
Where other places
Bourbon
have that
in
much
particular.
limestone, you know.
Yeah. So what you're saying to me is technically it doesn't have to be from Kentucky, but there's many insiders and probably most of the people in the distilleries in Kentucky, the purists, would argue that the true bourbon is from Kentucky. Is that true, or am I elaborating a little?
Well, no, I think that's pretty accurate. But technically, you can make it in Hawaii. But the question is how we feel like we make the best here. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's cool.
Something unique.
Well, thanks so much for bringing clarity to that. That's something we've definitely talked about, and I brought that up. And a good friend of mine who's down from Lexington, Kentucky, in passing, challenged me on it, and he said, "Oh no," and he had that Kentucky pride, which I love. I'm from Kentucky, and so I think it's great that Kentucky pride's there. But there are, and I'm sure you've tasted them as well. There are some good small batch bourbons not made in Kentucky. Am I right?
Absolutely. I've had some things from Bowman, A. Smith Bowman, out of Virginia that I found was very interesting. There's been bourbon from Missouri. And technically, I think some things coming out of Tennessee can be, if they don't do the Lincoln County process, can be called bourbon.
Nice.
Very cool.
So I think that's the sticking point there, from my knowledge, anyway.
Yeah, and they're all relatively close, I guess, in that area surrounding Kentucky and the general states. But so, what makes your guys different? I guess or bourbon a little different than some of the other ones you've tasted.
Yeah.
Specifically, the yellow label that we're trying today.
Well, we have a very unique process in the fact that we have 10 different bourbon recipes.
Whoa.
So we have 2 mash bills, our B mash bill, which is 60% corn, 35% rye, and 5% malted barley, and what we call our E mash bill, which is 75% corn, 20% rye, and 5% malted barley. But the key that makes us different, that's really the heart, what I consider the heart and soul of our company, are our proprietary yeast strains. Now, you taste the individual yeast strain whiskeys, and they're all very different. Yellow Label is a mingling of all 10 recipes.
Ooh, okay.
And the other thing that we do that's a little different is we occasionally throw some older whiskeys in there, and that's just kind of a weeding out process, to be quite honest.
Sure.
The vast majority of our production matures at between 6 and 8 years of age. We do have some older whiskeys, but that's really the lower end of the inventory spectrum,
Sure.
for us, to be quite honest.
So your Yellow Label is kind of your all's entry level. Can you talk how does that line up with the other ones?
Yeah, it is. It's average age is about 5 to 6 years. There's been a little downward pressure on that because our business is really kind of blowing up right now. So there's
it's a good thing.
Hey, do you think that might be because?
Absolutely.
Do you think the bourbon boom might be in part in favor of Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon podcast?
It doesn't hurt, I don't guess.
Hey, we're promoting it. Yeah, absolutely.
And if it gets really tight, is there any way to secure inventory?
Yeah. So
well, we're not hurting, but we've been running at about 80% increases to 90. We were at 90% increase last year, and
wow.
So it's our business is
good,
quadrupled over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's just really. It's hard to plan for those kind of production-wise, to plan for those kind of increases.
Sure.
Hey, we're going to be up 90% 5 years in a row, and you just don't 5 years ago, we just didn't think that was possible.
Sure.
But that's certainly what's going on with us
That's
right now.
fantastic.
Well, we're going to be sipping on your all's spirits for the whole month of September. And I believe the other two we're going to be sipping on are the single barrel and the small batch.
Small
Let's start
batch.
with the single barrel. Describe the attributes of that. What do we have to look forward to there?
Well, single barrel to me is my personal favorite when I'm drinking it straight up or on the rocks. Now, that is one single barrel, one single recipe. It's our B mash bill, again, 35% rye, which is double the rye typically up to this point. There are a lot of changes, a lot of people doing different production mash bills now. But that was typically about double the rye of any other bourbon on the market.
Nice.
It uses our V yeast strain. Now, our V yeast adds a little light fruit component to the whiskey, so it gives it a nice, clean finish.
Nice.
So when I'm drinking it straight up or on the rocks, that's really what I like. And you get this, and what I like about our bourbons in general, there's more of a big mid-palate caramel,
Yeah.
sugar
Oh, you
daddy
can tell.
caramel
Yeah.
to it, which is really my taste profile. I really like that.
Okay. Well, what about that? What about the small batch?
Small batch is a little more of a complicated process, not too much so, but that uses 4 different bourbon recipes that we have.
Whoa.
And none of them involve the V yeast. So it is, this is going to kind of confuse you a little bit,
no.
but I'm going to spit out the recipes.
Feel free to
It's
get
OESO
technical. Yeah.
and OBSO, and both
Okay.
of those mash bills comprise about 15% of the small batch. And then the other 2 recipes are OBSK and OESK.
Okay.
And those are both about 35%. So bottom line on it, the final product is about 70% K yeast. Now, O yeast is full fruit. So you get a straight O whiskey. It's kind of a tropical fruit kind of
Okay.
finish to it. K yeast strain adds spice to the finish.
Gotcha. So is that like
small batch has a longer, spicier finish. It's about a 50-50 mingling of the 2 mash bills, so it's actually lower rye mash bill, but that K spice makes you think that it's higher rye.
Man.
okay?
So you taste those 2 things side by side, you'll get a very good feel for the difference that the yeast strain makes in the final flavor of the whiskey.
That's
Yeah.
crazy that the yeast has such an impact, and it's not the
Yeah,
actual
never
grains, really. It's the way that they're digested and
Yeah.
spit back out.
So I mean, not that I want to run through all of them, but what is O strain? Now, what does the O stand for? I mean, is that
Well,
Open up and throw it down.
Well, when you look at our recipes, let's just do single barrel, OBSV.
Yep.
The first O is just the old Seagram's distillery designation. We were known as Old Prentice Distillery
Okay.
following Prohibition. And then the third letter, the S, just means simple or straight distillate, which lets you know that it came off the still at a low enough proof to be called bourbon.
Got it.
So when you see our recipe codes, it's the second letter is going to be B or E for the mash bill. Fourth letter is going to be V, K, O, Q, or F for the yeast strain.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm starting to get it. I'm
I
starting
feel-
to get
There
it.
we
I just want to make
go.
sure. I feel like you've given away the secret recipe to Four Roses.
No.
You've said so many complicated
well,
things.
here's the
You gotta
deal.
combine it right. Yeah.
And this is why we don't mind giving out our mash bills. You can take our mash bills all day long. If you do not have our proprietary yeast strain,
Ooh,
you're
yeah.
not going to come out with the same whiskey.
Or the same
You're
water.
not gonna
So
come out
would
with
you-
the
Yeah.
same bourbon.
So would you say
can't do it.
would you say the yeast is more important than the mash?
I'm not going to say it's more important. Well, yeah, I guess I am. I think
be
it's the
bold, be
foundation.
bold, make a stand.
Yeah.
It's going to. I think it's absolutely the foundation of our distillery. To be quite honest,
Wow.
if you taste our distillate straight off the doubler, it comes off the doubler at about 138 proof.
Whoa.
You're going to get a little mouth burn with that high in alcohol.
Yeah.
But you don't get any burn. You've done that cheap tequila shot in
Oh,
College burns your mouth, burns your throat, burns your stomach.
Too many
Yeah.
times. Too many times.
Well,
yeah.
When you taste our distillate, you get a mouth burn because of the high alcohol, but nothing in your throat and down to your stomach. It's extremely smooth straight off the still.
Sure.
And I attribute that to Jim Rutledge, to be quite honest. His attitude has always been that if you put the best distillate you can in the barrel, you're going to come out with a pretty good bourbon.
Okay.
If you put crappy whiskey, crappy distillate into a barrel, the barrel can only do so much.
Sure.
And I like to say you can pour A1 steak sauce on bologna, but that's not going to turn it into a T-bone steak.
Exactly. Yeah. It all goes down the
That's
line.
a great point. Now, let me ask you this: as far as we've talked a little bit about the yeast, we've talked about ingredients, we've talked about where it comes from, and all that sort of stuff. What is the barrel? How important is the barrel? You alluded to that about what goes into the barrel is important, but you also kind of hinted at the barrel is actually important. Can you break that down for us?
Well, Jim Rutledge says that probably 70% of the final flavor of the bourbon comes from the barrel. And the bottom line on it is that when you char a barrel, what you're doing is you're caramelizing the sugars within the wood of that barrel. And that is where the sweetness of bourbon comes from. It doesn't come from the mash bill because you've distilled or you've fermented all of the
sugars
sugar.
are out of it.
You've turned
Yeah.
that into alcohol. So the bourbon is not sweet because of the corn or the rye or if you're using a wheated recipe. It's sweet because of the sugars out of that barrel.
Gotcha.
But every barrel is different.
Sure. That's
And
why
I
you
could
guys
bring out 5 barrels of
Right.
OBSV bourbon, and
They're all slightly
every barrel
different.
will be slightly
Yep.
different. And as a matter of fact, I did a barrel selection where about a year ago where every barrel came from the same batch. It was from the same rick, same tier. They had actually been aging side by side by side by side, and they were all just a little bit different. Now, the flavor profile is a little closer when everything's equal, but they're still different. One was a little lighter, one had a little more char to it. It's just the barrel has every barrel has
Yeah.
its fingerprint of flavor.
It's
Nice.
amazing that you can tell the differences between those two. So, what wood are the barrels made out of? Is that
White oak.
necessary?
White oak.
Okay,
White
and that's
oak.
specific to bourbon, correct?
Yes,
and it's got to be charred.
Yeah,
got to be charred. Got to be a
charred
yeah,
white
absolutely,
oak barrel.
gotta be
You know,
charred.
how does a barrel become charred? Do you blowtorch it? Is there a fire and you rescue
Well,
it?
you know, essentially that's
They're
as
all
a
reclaimed.
description as any. We went through Independent Stave where we get all of our barrels. And it's essentially imagine a barrel with no heads in it. So you've got these 2 big iron plates that clamp down on either end of it, and they're essentially blowtorches. So depending on the amount of char you want, there's a 1 through 5 char. It's
like Indian
so
food.
You give that barrel a specific burn time to get to that specific char that you want.
Gotcha.
Nice.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, that's a fascinating process to watch barrels being made.
Now, can anybody select you said you got back from selecting a barrel. Could we come down? Could we select a barrel? Do we have that kind of power, or is that like
An
well,
elite
you have
privilege.
to go through a package store.
Yeah.
It is very tight right now. But our barrel inventories have had a lot of pressure on it the last year and a half, so we're limiting it to about 600 barrels a year now. So it is.
Get on a waiting list.
Yeah, that's essentially what's going on, and part of that stems from Buffalo Trace and Heaven Hill both kind of shut down their programs, or at least severely limited them. So there's just the barrel business has really become a huge part of the day-to-day bourbon business.
right?
Because there's life for barrels after bourbon.
Yeah.
Right. So what's the lifeline look
absolutely.
like? So
Well,
where do
most
they go
of ours,
next?
we contract out to a company here in Louisville called Kelvin Cooperage, and most of them are shipped over to Scotland. They are aging Scotch in bourbon barrels.
Gotcha.
But there's a tremendous demand from micro breweries to
the
do
bourbon barrel ales.
bourbon
Yeah.
stouts in them. So
Gotcha. Now, are you guys?
kind of blowing
You
up.
talked about shipping international. Is Four Roses part of a conglomerate like some of the others? Are you guys independent? Are you guys American only? Talk about that.
Well, we were purchased by Seagram's in 1943 during the war. They paid $42 million for us.
Whoa.
That's a lot of money back then.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's huge.
Well, and part of the reason most people don't realize that there was a complete ban on distillation of beverage alcohol the first 2 years of the war. All the distilleries had to produce industrial alcohol for manufacturing purposes.
Yeah.
So Seagram's was under that same ban, and they came in and bought up 20 distilleries to support their needs, to be quite honest. So
That's insane.
Gotcha.
very
Yeah.
interesting time, period in history there.
This is fascinating.
Very.
So, but are you guys connected to like other brands, or is it just the Four Roses
No.
and just
well,
the
here's
three?
the deal. Seagram's went out of business in 2002, actually, before the deal was finalized. We ended up being purchased by Kirin Beer. Now, Kirin wanted us because had been the Seagram's distributor
Japanese?
from the early 70s
Korean?
and had built Four Roses into the #1 bourbon in Japan over those years.
Japan.
Right.
And like every other major corporation, if you're not going global, you're getting left behind. So
Sure.
that was kind of a strategic move for them. They wanted to move into a little more focus on the American market, and then they reintroduced us. Of course, the bourbon wasn't on the market at that point.
Right.
It was all blended whiskey.
And there's and actually some of the am I right in saying some of the Japanese bourbons are actually trending pretty well? Like people are trying to get a hold of them.
Japanese whiskeys
Japanese
there, Brandon.
whiskey. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the Japanese malted whiskeys, absolutely. They won the big malted whiskey tasting here a couple of years ago against their Scottish competitors.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, you need to look into that. They're making some very, very good malted whiskeys, no
Yeah,
doubt.
we might have to do
Awesome.
a comparison episode here.
Yeah, might have to get in there. So I'll tell you what, you sound like a guy who knows his bourbon. We've clearly established you're an expert. You've been around. You understand different aspects of the game, from the salesmanship to the manufacturing to the taste and the appreciation, the curation. My question is, do you have any weird or fun facts about bourbon? You got anything that the lay person might not understand, or is there any here? And we're filmmakers, so in our terms, we have film terms that are really funny to the outsiders. They wouldn't understand what different film terms are. Alex has a whole handful of terms that sound weird
Some
or
are
inappropriate.
Inappropriate for radio, yeah.
But internally on a film set, everybody knows what they mean. What are the terms? Are there any weird terms or interesting terms in the bourbon world that the layperson wouldn't know, but as distillers, you guys
use
it's
all
your
the
common
time.
language?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Nothing comes to mind.
Right.
One of the things I think that most people don't realize is that there are actually 3 categories of bourbon.
Okay.
And it gets
I did
very
not know that.
confusing for people.
All right. Let's get into it.
Bourbon, if you pick up a bottle, all it has on it is bourbon.
Yep.
That means it's less than 2 years old.
Okay.
And the rules and regulations on the aging of it are just a little bit different, and how you age it.
So we featured
Straight bourbon whiskey, it has to be aged in a new charred oak barrel for a minimum of 2 years.
Okay.
So to be quite honest, if you can have bourbon whiskey that's been aged for 3 minutes in a barrel, that qualifies it as bourbon.
Okay. Because we featured on the show once.
And then the third classification is bonded whiskeys, which a little more stringent standards.
Bonded?
It's got to be
Like just out of jail?
Product of 1 distillation season. It's got to be a minimum of 4 years old.
Gotcha.
And 100 proof.
Okay. So on the show,
So
one of our
people just kind of whitewash over that, and so you can get away with a lot more things when it's just under 2 years old and it's just called bourbon.
Sure.
So you start getting
Right.
You there? Did we lose you?
I think we may have lost him.
We lost Dan.
Dan went down in the bourbon barrel.
Can Dave
Well, I
can
hear
Dave dial him back up?
Well, let's see if Dave can.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll check in on that. But Alex, I think it's super interesting how Dan has brought a light
Yeah.
to the darkness.
There's so many things I didn't know about bourbon. I mean, first of all, you were spot on when you did your research.
Yes, thank you.
51% corn or more. He's
Right.
talking about 60, 70% corn,
Absolutely.
certain percent rye.
Yep.
But what
got
I
a
didn't know
Charred oak barrel.
was the yeast thing. I didn't know how much of an impact that would have on the actual outcome of the bourbon.
Sure.
So, like, one, you get a fruity, one, you get a spicy.
What about
one,
all the terms he had for the yeast strains?
Oh, V, K.
0.
But what did he say? There were 5 different? 4
Yeah,
or 5
man,
different?
it was like a big thing.
And he said Four Roses, in and of themselves, have 10 different bourbon recipes that they then blend.
Yeah,
to
but he didn't give us the yeast. He gave us the mash.
Yeah.
Because you don't give up the yeast. This is a game where
Well, no,
you
no.
protect the yeast.
He said the 4th letter in that recipe was the yeast strain, but people don't have access to it. So he said, hey, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
But unless you can
can't-
find my
yeah,
yeast somewhere,
You can't make my yeast.
there's no,
No.
you're not going to get the same bourbon.
Ah, man. So cool. Dude, this guy's
Anyway.
the man.
He's our
I
expert.
hope he comes back online so we can close, find out more.
We'll get him back. Tech,
Yeah.
tech support in here in Studio B at Sound Images will
Yeah.
get him back.
So, one of the things that I want to encourage people is if
Yeah.
you like what you're hearing right now, if you like the fact that we're bringing you fresh content and diverse content, Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon is primarily a filmmaking podcast, but it's also a bourbon podcast.
As is evident by this episode.
Yeah, and if you go to iTunes and you search bourbon, we're like the number 2 podcast in the market.
Exactly.
Hello?
Dan's back. There
we
he
got
is.
him.
Hey, man, we lost you.
Yeah, I don't know what I ended with.
That's
so.
okay. I'll tell you what. Where we were is that you were explaining the different types of bourbon, the straight bourbon, the bonded whiskey, etc. The one thing I wanted to point out, and this isn't judging this bourbon. We feature all different types of bourbons on the show. But so I would assume that when we featured the Ancient of Age 36 months that was in a plastic bottle, that would be just considered like your basic bourbon, right?
Well, that qualifies as straight bourbon whiskey because it was aged a minimum of 2 years in the barrels. That's 36 months. Years.
Okay. And so what about
Gotcha.
You also mentioned the straight.
That's
The next level, was it the next level, the straight bourbon whiskey?
yeah, and then bonded.
And
Yep.
who would be straight bourbon whiskey? Is that like a Jim Beam? Is that like your basic?
Well, yeah, most everybody look, if you pick up a bottle and there's no age statement on the label, front or back anywhere, it's 4 years old.
Okay.
Okay, so anytime it's less than 4 years old, it has to state it on the label somewhere.
Gotcha. And then what determines the bonded? What takes it to the next level?
Well,
chains.
bonded whiskey is, there are a couple of reasons for that law. It was a guarantee of quality and purity. It's got to be a distillation of one distilling season.
Okay.
It's got to be, again, aged a minimum of 4 years. But the key to it is this, and really it was the ultimate reason for it. It goes into what they call a bonded warehouse. In other words, the federal tax does not have to be paid on that whiskey until it is sold. So that's the key to it. It's under federal control, but once it leaves that particular warehouse, that bonded warehouse they call it, that's when you pay taxes on it. So
Interesting.
it was a huge cost savings for distilleries back when it was passed.
Okay.
So there was a lot of quality issues with it. But to my way of thinking, that the real deal is it saved them one hell of a lot of money, the cost of money.
I can only imagine.
You know, you pay the federal excise tax. I think it's over $14 a gallon now.
Whoa.
You pay that federal excise tax up front. You might not sell that bourbon for 2
true.
or 3 years.
Yeah,
That's a hell
true.
of a lot of money. You've
Sure.
got accumulating interest costs on.
Gotcha.
Man.
Now, Dan, was there something to the bonded warehouses that allowed the bourbon distilleries to make bourbon through Prohibition? Was there something like that? I've heard.
Well, Prohibition is a very interesting. There's a great book called Last Call. It was published 2 or 3 years ago. Fascinating.
Sounds great.
Yeah, we'll post that
honestly.
on
Well,
the
what
site.
happened?
Yes,
what happened
please.
was this: when Prohibition was first passed, federal government had employees that literally unlocked the door to the still house and the warehouses. But when Prohibition ended, they left that whiskey in all these individual warehouses. So somebody would go up to the federal agent, lock and key guy, and say, "Hey, here's $200. Get lost for a couple of hours." So
That happens around here a
amount of
lot.
whiskey was stolen out of the individual distillery warehouses. So when the federal government finally caught on, they moved all that inventory to federally bonded warehouses. So they had a little better control on it. Now, as far as I know, most people think that those 6 distilleries that had those medicinal licenses were making whiskey all during Prohibition. That was not the case. Now, I've heard that. I hear different things. I probably need to talk to Mike Veach, who's a bourbon historian here in Louisville.
Ooh.
Hey, I know Mike Veach. We know Mike Veach because we did a documentary on Newport, Kentucky, which in the Cincinnati area where we podcast from, lived a man named George Remus, which now there's a bourbon named after George Remus. But while we were shooting that documentary, we interviewed Mike Veach as one of our sort of prohibition experts. And so that's funny that you know him. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, Mike's extremely
should get him on here.
When there's something that I'm not sure on, I call Mike.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
He's just really tops.
That's great. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I want people to know about is, this product and this brand doesn't just have to be experienced from the store shelves. You can actually visit your all's distillery. I've personally done the entire Bourbon Trail. I've done it on motorcycle. I wasn't drinking and driving. We don't promote that. We do not promote that here at FDB. But I did do it and enjoyed the landscape, the beautiful countryside, the horse farms. And you guys have a beautiful little visitation area / museum / sort of you can take a tour. Tell the listeners about how they can come experience Four Roses firsthand.
Well, we're at 1224 Bonds Mill Road, which is on the southwest side of Lawrenceburg. You get on the bypass, 127 bypass from Frankfort to Lawrenceburg. So we're about a quarter of a mile north of the Bluegrass Parkway. So if you go over the Bluegrass, you've gone too far. But the distillery was built in 1910. It's Spanish mission-style architecture.
Wow.
So very, very unusual architecture for Kentucky. It was designed by Joseph and Joseph Architects, which are still in business. As a matter of fact, they still have the original plans from the distillery.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I noticed was your all's place looked a lot different than some of the other places.
A
Yeah,
lot less wood involved.
But what I did not know that was Spanish mission architecture was kind of part of the Art Deco movement.
Yeah.
Huh.
And if you look at the doors leading into the front of the distillery, the big doors, there are designs above the door. And some woman from California, when I brought that up, she said, "Oh yeah, she named the design the relief or whatever it is she called it." So, but it's typically we think of that Miami Beach kind of Art Deco thing, but Spanish mission architecture was part of it.
So people can come there, and what can they do if they come to the place?
Well, we have a distillery tour. When you start that, you'll get about a 10-minute film, kind of giving the history, a little bit of history of Four Roses, but also just the production process of bourbon in general. So very, very informative. And you'll get the chance to walk through the distillery. We'll view the grain bins and areas, and we'll explain where we get our grain from. Like all our grain comes from South Central Indiana. It's non-GMO, always has been. We've been buying from the same families for 50 or 60 years.
Wow.
Our rye comes from Europe.
Whoa.
That is European countries produce the biggest, most plump, most flavorful rye whiskey because it needs that northern longitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool.
That's fantastic.
So it's, again, as Rutledge says, you buy the best grain, you put the best distillate in the barrel. what comes out. Most of the work is done.
Yeah, it's the sum of all the products.
You don't need any magic from the barrel.
Well, I've
sure.
got a question that it seems obvious, but we haven't touched on. Why are you guys called Four Roses?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot.
Well, actually, Adam's got the.
Do you need me to quote the bottle?
Adam's got the bottle here.
Because Paul Jones Jr., the founder of Four Roses Bourbon.
The story goes that Paul Jones, again, we started in Atlanta, Georgia, right after the Civil War. And
Yeah.
he supposedly fell in love with this lovely young Southern belle and asked for her hand in marriage. Well, she said she would give her answer at the upcoming ball. If her answer was no, she would be wearing a corsage of 3 red roses. If it was yes, it would be 4 red roses.
Ooh.
Well, that comes out of the Victorian-era sign language called the language of flowers. So if anybody out there Googles the language of flowers, it'll bring up several different websites which explains the meaning of each flower, the meaning of the number of flowers.
Should I be worried?
It's a very intricate kind of deal.
Dan, should I be worried that my wife only wears 3 flowers? Is that a problem?
And for the listeners, this isn't all in the back of the bottle here.
You're getting exclusive content.
It doesn't even say Google back here.
This is going
It's
deeper.
Yeah.
Well,
really good.
if they Google that, they can actually get into websites to give the very, very detailed explanation.
Wait. So don't leave us hanging here. Did she wear 3 or 4?
Yeah, what happened?
Of course, she wears 4, the corsage of 4 red roses, and he names his whiskey 4 Roses in honor of his love of this young lady.
Beautiful.
That's so great.
That's awesome.
Like a romantic, it's a rom-com.
Or just or just a straight romance.
Yeah. Well, man, Dan, you have been a book of knowledge. We've really, really enjoyed chatting with you. I know Alex he's got a couple things he's burning to ask.
I got one more thing. So do you guys recommend you drink it straight? Do you guys mix it with stuff? If you mix it, what do you pair it with? How do you enjoy your Four Roses?
Well, one thing about Four Roses Yellow Label in particular, it's very, very flavorful straight up, but it also mixes very well. We've got some drinks, summertime drinks. You don't get that typical harsh bourbon flavor with Four Roses when it goes into a mixed drink. So that's what makes it so enjoyable. The bottom line on it is this. I think the absolute worst way to drink bourbon or whiskey of any, Tennessee whiskey or whatever is with Coke.
Oh,
and the only reason I say that is this.
It overpowers it.
Completely masks the flavor of the whiskey.
Yep.
And you end up drinking it too fast. Because I know I've done that. I've been there. I think we all have at some point in life. And it's just, so whenever I talk to people that are just beginning to drink whiskey and they want a mixer, I recommend ginger ale.
Ooh, really?
It's not as sweet.
You get some of the spice of the ginger,
and there's not as much flavor to the ginger ale, so it allows the flavor of the bourbon to show through. So people can start, if they're just starting out, neophytes, they can start getting used to the flavor of bourbon.
I like it.
But I typically tell people to do it with water.
Yeah, just spring water.
Pour it over rocks. Taste it. If it's too strong, add water.
Yep.
If it's too strong, keep adding water till you get to the point where the only thing you taste is a nice little sweet edge to it.
Interesting.
So, and then like anything else, once you do that, once you find that sweet spot when you're first starting out, like anything else, you end up going, the longer you drink over the years, you just get used to it and you start drinking it a little stronger and
stronger.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, that's just awesome.
I mean, I can tell you I've enjoyed the yellow label that we've had today.
Yeah,
so.
I'll tell you, this is really cool. I think what's fun about this episode is normally we say we're filmmakers drinking bourbon, but today I feel like we're bourbon tasters.
Talking about film.
We haven't even talked about film. I mean, it's just.
Hold on.
Ask him.
Before we this conversation ends, there's typically 3 things that we ask on this show to our guests. We ask, what are you watching? What are you working on? And what are you excited about? And I think those things, especially second and third, can apply to bourbon. So, Dan, what have you been watching?
Yeah, what TV shows, what movies do you love? Tell us a little bit about. We'd like to hear that side of you.
I'm a Walking Dead freak.
Oh,
How did I know?
I love it.
I'm with you,
And
Dan.
I've been watching the Fear
love
the
it.
Walking Dead. So
Yes.
I've been,
Okay.
I felt that show has gotten off to a great start. But
Nice.
I watch a lot of History Channel
Okay.
as well. But
Perfect.
in terms of just sheer entertainment, that's the one thing that I don't miss.
Walking Dead.
Nice. All right. Well, what are you working on? What do you guys got brewing up over at Four Roses? That is there
Another blend,
is
another
there
yeast?
anything you can tell us about?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you that everything that we've been kicking around has been put on hold because of
So
just
busy.
the explosive growth. We're barely keeping up
Yeah.
with our current products. But once we're doubling the size of our distillery. Our production anyway. We're adding a second column still and a second pot still.
Wow.
We're already building our new bottling facility down at Cox's Creek, which is about 30 miles south of Louisville.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's some fantastic. Well, okay, so the third one then is anything that you're excited about. You guys have anything in the works that other than that?
This is open-ended.
Yeah.
This is kind of the space where we can kind of, I mean, you could be excited about anything.
There could be a new bourbon metal tap deal.
Or it might not be bourbon related. You might be excited about a trip to Europe or something.
Exactly.
What are you excited about?
So it wouldn't take that much. With our B mash bill, at 35%, all we need to do is just take that up to 16% more rye grain to it, and we would be there. But that's, there's nothing definitive on board now. We're just trying to keep our head above water with what we're dealing with right now. So we've got about a 2 or 3 year gap here. We're probably going to be.
We just lost him again.
We lost him. So obviously here he cut out there for a second, and we started asking the next question before he was done answering.
And
the
that's
second.
fine. You know what? He's been a wealth of knowledge.
He's been fantastic. Once we get him back, we'll
Well, if we can get him back, I don't know what's going on here.
Keep up too much more of his time.
Dan is just this guy's unbelievable.
Yeah. So
we've
they're
learned so much about bourbon today.
Exactly. But it's fantastic to see that they're so busy that they don't even have time to.
They can't even think about new products.
Yeah, no, but what they do right.
They have a product that's so good.
Yeah, and so they're working on just making sure that that's perfect.
This is crazy.
I love it.
Unbelievable. This is amazing.
He loves The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah,
perfect.
who would have saw that coming?
Oh my gosh.
Out of nowhere, down in Louisville.
36 years.
Bourbon country loves zombies.
I love it.
Loves it. Zombies.
Well, you say they were starting in Atlanta. Is that what he said?
Yeah, zombies.
Which is where they filmed The Walking Dead.
Zombies love bourbon.
Do they?
Does that claim work out?
I don't know if that's
for those
a known
of you out
fact.
there. For those of you out there who watch the horror films and the zombie films, you're into that scene.
Yeah.
Can you share your knowledge of zombies with us? I happen to think that zombies love bourbon.
Maybe they chew on bourbon drinkers more.
I don't know.
That might be
because they're a little
thing.
sweeter. They got the caramelization in the barrels.
We
learned so much. There's the Look, let's see a quick recap.
Go for it.
You've got the Kentucky limestone water.
Yes.
You've got the 51% corn mash.
Yeah.
You're bringing in the rye from Europe.
But the sweetness doesn't come from that.
No.
Which is what's crazy. It comes from the charred barrel and
the
caramelization of the wood.
Right. And there's 5 levels of charring.
5.
Levels 1 through 5.
Like I said, like
Indian food. Would you like your charred level 1?
Do you want super charred?
Would you like level 3?
And I wonder, we never asked him, but I'm sure that affects the color of the bourbon as well.
Absolutely, it's got to.
The darker the char,
yeah, why wouldn't it?
The darker the bourbon.
Yeah, unbelievable. So I think the thing that I think is do what? We're right now we're trying to figure out if we can get Dan on the show.
Yeah.
And so we're sorry for the interruption. This is live. This is live to tape.
Well, like we said, we laid it out. No, we laid it out in the first few episodes. We do not edit this.
Why would we edit this?
Why not?
Why? We're not perfect.
We don't.
We're not trying to be perfect.
No, we're
just trying to talk to Dan.
We're presenting this as it happens.
He's a bourbon expert.
He is. He's our bourbon expert.
He is. And so what we were talking about, the bourbon barrels are charred, then they're stored.
Then they're stored.
There's different levels. They're stored for 36 months. They're stored for 2 years.
2 years.
Straight bourbon
4
whiskey.
years.
4 years. Bonded. They can be bonded or not bonded. There's warehouses.
Applies to taxes.
This is unbelievable.
And then after they're used, they get shipped over, he said, to Ireland.
Yeah. Or Scotland.
Any of those?
Scotch is in Scotland, I assume.
I think that's Japanese, though.
I don't know, dude. There's a lot going on in the bourbon world.
For sure.
And we're bringing it to you here live on what I'm going to go ahead and say. I'm going to make this claim.
Go ahead.
Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon is the #2 Bourbon Podcast.
I love how we're representing number 2.
But number 2, we're a filmmaking podcast, and we're still able to rank in the top 3.
We just started.
For bourbon.
Just started.
This is our first bourbon episode.
This is only our 14th episode.
The people who listen to bourbon podcasts are laughing at us.
This is crazy.
And they hate us.
Because we just got access
we're
to
number 2 in the store.
Four Roses expert.
And Dan is...
Hey, guys, I'm back.
He's back. All right. Well, the reason we wanted you back is because we wanted, to be able to say goodbye. You've been so kind to us, and you've been a wealth of knowledge. We've learned so much about bourbon.
Yes.
We look forward to learning more as we go through Bourbon Heritage Month, the month of September, with our special guest, brought to you by the one and only...
Four Roses.
Four Roses Bourbon.
Yes.
And so we really appreciate it, Dan. You've been so kind to us, and we really appreciate it. We've been told by some people, by your team down at Four Roses, that you guys are willing to hook up our listeners, one listener each week, with a really cool giveaway from Four Roses. Is that true, or am I speculating?
That is correct.
Yes. Now, I also heard that it's going to be a really nice coffee table book that I assume is all about Four Roses, the heritage, etc., and a really cool ball cap of the Four Roses cap. Is that true, or am I just making this up?
That is correct.
Oh, you guys are the best.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan.
Every week.
Well, Dan, Alex, Dan, I don't know if you know this, but we have a process for how we do this because we are blessed to be able to give away stuff on the show from our partners. Alex, what is it we do?
There's 3 things that our listeners have to do. They have to go to Twitter and put out a tweet with the @FDB podcast.
Correct.
@Four Roses Bourbon.
And I believe, and I'm not sure, Dan, is it actually the number 4, the word roses, and the word bourbon, correct? Four Roses Bourbon?
I would spell it out. F-O-U-R.
F-O-U-R.
Okay.
So it's @FDB podcast, @FOUR Roses Bourbon. Four Roses Bourbon.
Four Roses Bourbon, yes. Spell it all out.
Okay. And then
just to be clear, there is a Twitter handle with the number 4. That's not the official Twitter, right?
I don't think so.
That's a fake.
There are only about 20 out there.
Okay. We'll clarify that. Yes. We'll make sure that when we tweet that out, we'll get the right one.
But either way, so they got to mention us, they got to mention you, and then they have to include the hashtag
FDB giveaway. Which actually, Dan, there's another company who was using the hashtag FDB giveaway, and they sold handbags and purses.
They're a purse company.
So a lot of our listeners were trying to get filmmaking giveaways and now bourbon giveaways. Yeah. And in
somebody might have won a purse.
Somebody might have won a purse. So now, Dan, are you on Twitter?
Yes.
You are.
What is your Twitter handle, Dan?
Do you want to connect with people on Twitter? Because we'd love people to. Okay.
I'm Bourbon Dan.
Bourbon Dan.
Bourbon Dan.
All right.
I love it.
Well, we want our listeners to connect with Four Roses and Bourbon Dan, and we have had just so much fun. Guys, anything else you want to chime in?
Dan, no, thanks, man. This was wonderful.
Yeah. We learned so much.
Y'all get down to Louisville, y'all look me up, and hell, I might buy you a drink.
There you go.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, well, listen, we will take you up on that. We're only about less than 2 hours away up here in Cincinnati.
We might have to do a live episode from Four Roses Distillery.
We might have to do an episode
from
Four Roses.
He has no idea what he just said himself for. I am so sorry, Dan.
Hell, I can meet y'all on the fun side of Cincinnati, down there in northern Kentucky.
Okay, that sounds good.
The fun side.
Yeah.
Newport.
Yeah,
nice.
Right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for everything. We appreciate your wealth of knowledge. Thanks for kind of bringing to light some issues that we didn't know about.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You have been amazing, but we've got 4 more weeks with Four Roses.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else that you think would just be fun to talk to and get on the show?
Oh, from our company?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Al Young, of course, the gentleman who wrote the book, the book on the history of the company, Wealth of Knowledge. He was former distillery manager. He was a distillery manager there for about 20 years. He's got a lot of insight into both the production side of it and history, because he's done all of this tremendous amount of research into the history.
That's what we want.
Not only Four Roses, but also the Jones family, who they're still Jones family members here in Louisville. So
Yeah.
Great.
very
well,
interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what, we might hit you up offline and see if we can't maybe find some other names. But once again, Dan, thanks so much. Thanks to Four Roses Bourbon. You guys are amazing. This yellow label is very tasty.
Yep.
We're looking forward to the single barrel and the small batch.
We're gonna be stepping it up each week.
So,
Yep.
Dan, thanks so much, and we'll chat with you on the other side, man.
Thanks, Dan.
Very good, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Hey,
All right,
cheers. Let's
cheers.
get cheers to Dan.
Cheers. Cheers to Dan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dan.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Unbelievable.
So our listeners each week get a coffee table book about Four Roses and a hat. That's
now,
fantastic.
not
Yeah.
all of our listeners. We're not Oprah.
No,
Not
but
all of our listeners.
one lucky listener.
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 One lucky listener.
Each
All they
week.
have to do is chime in and say
At-
something about at Four Roses Bourbon, at FTB Podcast,
and hashtag.
hashtag FTB giveaway.
Yes.
So
Yes. We'd like
Wow.
if you'd include a little more.
what
than
a show.
just three.
We had to,
Yeah.
so for you listeners, just so you know, we had no clue what to expect today.
No. None.
All we did was we knew that our friends at Four Roses were going to be partners for the month of September. That was our big reveal.
They make fantastic bourbon.
Bourbon Heritage Month, Four Roses, major bourbon brand.
Yes.
Bringing them to you right here on FTB Podcast.
Yeah.
We had no clue what was going to happen.
No.
What happened was Dan. Dan happened.
We got the guy that knows
Dan.
it. It's been in the industry for, what do you say, 36 years.
36-year veteran.
Yeah.
36-year veteran.
Everybody who he said he worked beside has
Yes.
like a reserve next to their name on a bottle somewhere.
It's
like,
ridiculous.
oh yeah, I worked with Jimmy Russell. Reserve.
Booker,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
God.
they all got that. So
Ridiculous. He was awesome, man.
man.
What a day. So, well, this has been fun, Adam, having you in the studio. Sometimes you're with us, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're working in the
I was
next
gonna
room.
say my head's above water this
Yeah,
week.
sometimes you're
Sometimes
in
you're
the-
spinning around our heads doing this binaural
So
stuff.
this is kind of cool because today, actually, a lot of times now, some of you guys might not believe this,
Huh.
because it sounds so real. But we sometimes throw it to Adam, and he's not actually in the room.
It's remote.
So I'm sorry if that ruined your experience.
The curtain's down, guys.
but we're authentic
peek
here.
behind.
Yeah.
But so it's cool
Gotta
to
be
be able
genuine,
to throw
yeah.
it to you
Yeah.
in real life.
Exactly.
So Alex, you want to throw it to him?
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, Adam, what do you got for us today on the FTB soundbite?
If this is anything like real life, it's like this. Ready? Yeah. So I was thinking, guys. Yeah. Hey. All right, let me start it over, you guys. Okay.
Take two.
Yeah,
Take two. FTB soundbite. Take two. Go.
No, yeah. Yeah, thing. No. All right, hang on. Yeah, the thing's not it.
Edit.
This week, Dave, can you take that back? Okay. No,
Oh, come on.
yeah,
you're
this
not
week
that
we're going to
bad.
talk about ADR and the people who don't do it and should,
Ooh.
Right.
and how cheap it can actually be.
Please tell me all about this.
Enlighten us.
Yeah. Well, no, this happened the other week. So someone had a horrible location shoot. They got to the location. They're like, this is it.
Noisy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was horrible.
Like we're trained.
Yeah, like it was like, so it's a bunch of different really loud spaces that it's never
Yeah.
going to work out, you know? So
He can
so
remove that. Don't worry.
So it's dead on that. So they realized that it was not going to work from day one.
yeah.
And they're
They
like,
decided to shoot anyway.
yeah, so a commercial shoot, 30-second spot, right?
Sure.
Ooh.
And so it matters,
Kind of,
it really
yeah.
matters.
Come
So
on
they
TV.
decided after the fact, they're like, nah. Let's just do it. It looks way too good. We're
Right.
just going to do ADR. And I'm like,
Because some guys in the background, he's like, peanuts!
Oh god. I think you said peanuts, but
that's peanuts, totally. Is there ratings for this?
I don't know. I
think we gotta put
might-
explicit.
I'm pretty sure that our special guest Anthony dropped a few
I
F-bombs
know.
for us.
Might have had some explicit on there.
That was
Anyway.
an episode.
And that was the sober episode.
that was episode 11. If anyone's going back and checking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
yeah, so
they
it
were
came
on
in.
location, noisy,
Yeah.
said shoot it anyway, brought it to you.
30-second spot.
Yep.
Fix
Finished full up ADR in 30 minutes.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like, same actor, same everything, killed it, knocked it out.
For sure.
And it kind of enlightened me in a way. I've done plenty of ADR for films and never thought about
Sure.
it for commercial, of like,
Mm-hmm.
to redo everything.
Now, you talked about enlighten. You need to enlighten our listeners. Not everybody knows what
Right.
ADR
Yes.
means.
All right. So the term is kind of antiquated now, but it means automated dialogue replacement. So
Okay.
so it's when someone drops an F-bomb for the real script and then it needs to go to TV, and it's a you're gonna go ahead and drop a, it's gonna be truck now or something.
Yeah,
or
sure.
they'll rewrite it. So that's how they use ADR for TV. For motion pictures, a lot of what happens is they'll have a line that's mumbled, but the take was right, everything was good. The line
Yeah.
might be mumbled, might be off mic, there might be a plane flying by or something. They just need to fix it. So you go in after the fact and in post, you swap out the line. So same actor, typically the same mic setup. They watch themselves on a screen, sync their lips, say the line again.
I've got a fun fact for you, buddy.
What do you got?
So, as some might know, maybe they don't know. I think I talked about this. My background was in audio production. And in one of my classes, Sound for Film, I literally, we redid the sound and the ADR for the entire first 10 minutes of Spike Jonze's Three Kings.
Whoa.
And I played the voice of Ice Cube. And I'll have to dig it up. If I dig it up, I'll post it on the site. But
Spike
have
Jones.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
No.
No. Spike
Lee?
somebody.
Lee.
No.
Spike Jones.
What?
The movie Three Kings
Yeah.
with
Look it up. Spike Jones is in it. He's the one guy. He's the little punk, the little wiry punk guy. Look it up. Look it up. We'll talk. We'll clarify this.
that's fine.
Fact checking.
Anyway, but the whole front end of the film is you're watching the film, and we did it for students. We did it so well that it's just hilarious because all these voices are dead on, but they're a bunch of white kids and not Clooney, not George Clooney or whatnot.
Oh.
So David O. Russell, sorry, but Spike Jonze is in there.
Is he?
Yeah, he's in there. Look up the cast.
Wow.
All right, go on ADR.
Yeah. Where'd I leave off?
I don't
See,
know.
oh,
Sorry.
man,
That's my problem.
Dan talked a good long time,
So
and we poured some
we
extra
described
drinks here.
Yeah, we described what ADR is, but what do you mean when you say you redo everything?
So we redid in the spot every piece of dialogue. So absolutely every piece of dialogue in the whole spot. And so anything that was on camera was 100% fake. All the environments, everything was 100%
Sound design,
fake.
even?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Wait, you mean this industry is fake?
Oh, God. Who would have thought?
Curtain has been lifted
I've-
again.
Yeah, of the rumors that you hear. Yeah. Yeah, there was the stuff that we did for the ADR work we did for this is great with Josh and Jennifer for beautiful.
Yeah. Josh.
That
and
was Bourbon ADR.
What's the film? It's got Hunger Games.
Hunger
Sorry,
Games,
good
yeah.
lord.
Whoa, stop. Wait a second. You
Yeah.
did ADR for Hunger Games?
Yeah.
In Cincinnati?
Yeah.
And when you say Josh and Jennifer, you're talking about Hutcherson and
Yeah.
Lawrence.
Okay, whoa. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can
Yeah.
we get Hutcherson on the phone? Or on the
phone?
show?
We could try.
You think
he's not here. The reason
Does he drink bourbon?
I don't know.
Is he old enough to
find-
drink bourbon? Is he 21?
He's old
really
enough.
close.
Are you sure?
If not,
He's probably older than I am.
No. He's definitely younger than all of us. We can find out. I think it's
okay.
really
Hey,
close.
we
if
should
not.
at least try. Because
Listen,
he's
I'm
where's he
not-
from? Hold on. Where's
He's
he?
from Cincinnati.
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Union, Kentucky.
Yeah, Union, Kentucky.
I believe Union.
I'm not
Somewhere around
saying
there.
he's going to be on the show, but I'm going to go ahead and say Josh Hutcherson's going to be on the show.
He's going to be on the show just the way that we had James Franco on the show.
You know what, James? We were close. Me and James's representative, she didn't respond to an email I sent her, and that was close.
That was right. Yeah, we were right there.
This is sad.
Right there. But we also found out he doesn't drink bourbon.
Yeah, so he didn't want anything to do with it.
But
He
if
didn't want in.
Hutcherson drinks bourbon,
We need to find this out.
Okay, I'm not
but-
trying to pressure the situation. But he seems like a fun guy who could have a good
He's
time.
a pretty
on the
fun
show.
guy. He's a pretty awesome guy.
Okay,
He's,
let's leave it at that.
fun guy.
And maybe
And-
he can bring Jennifer Lawrence. Just saying, not
Yeah.
pressuring.
Who's Louisville, Kentucky as well.
Just throwing it out there.
They're close.
Yeah.
Or
I'm
we
sure
can
they
go
spent
down to
plenty of
Four
time.
Roses near Louisville
And
and
invite
interview
them.
Jennifer Lawrence
Yeah.
and Josh Hutcherson.
Okay.
Oh, we have our dreams.
Okay.
So,
We have our dreams.
So
now
anyway.
we know why he doesn't record his segment.
Yes.
In our.
Because it takes for. Okay, so anyway,
far more entertaining this way
have
than
questions.
it is me dryly sitting in a room going, "Oh God, how am I
Yes.
going to cut this thing
For
together?
sure.
I've screwed this up."
so you do.
Oh, geez.
They do that, and you were talking about the benefits. How it's maybe not as expensive. It's more practical.
it's an option. It's really an option
Because people think about it in say some of our projects, they're like, no, we can't afford that.
Yeah.
We got to do it right
if you've got budget for audio post,
Yeah.
you've got budget to fix a couple lines.
for sure.
From the studio end of it, right? So from the studio end of it, it's if they've got it right, you're not going to get killed budget wise to knock out a line in 5 minutes.
Yeah. What about somebody? Okay, so we did a project like this with with Brad Gollowin, who we've had on the show.
He's been on the show.
Eddie, we did a short film. We shot it on the Alexa, and we didn't record any sound whatsoever.
Yeah.
And we had it all created in post.
Yeah.
Something like that. How is that super involved? Is that
If you've got the right talent,
Yeah.
it always boils down to this. So with Dan,
Mhm.
Dan today said, you put the best ingredients in.
Yep.
Barrel doesn't matter. You're going to get the best ingredients out. I also wonder about
Yeah.
the places where they got the barrels, if they're going to be angry with Dan. That he's like, you kind of don't matter.
Yeah.
But
he went back and he
did. It's-
restated their importance.
It is. I mean, that's where the sugar comes from. But
Yeah.
but with your screenplay,
Yep.
it's a script that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And with anything in post or with anything on on camera or on mic, it's
Yeah.
a talent that matters.
Kind of
sure.
like this podcast.
For sure.
Oh yeah, high level talent. But
High
yeah,
level.
so if you've got the right talent who
Yep.
who understands their job,
Yeah.
they'll get it.
You can add.
And
It's
it'll be
just
quick.
another piece
Yeah.
of the pie that
Yeah.
all distills down into that final great
Yeah.
product.
And it's an easy option.
Yeah.
So
For
that's
sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. Audio is important, people.
Yeah, take
That's what
the
we're saying.
time, and if you screw up, do a little ADR and get it right.
But
Yeah.
don't
Even on site too. You can
Yeah.
pull it off there too.
Don't chintz.
It's always used to. Yeah.
Don't
Fix it.
chintz on it.
call up our buddies here at Sound Images if you've flubbed your audio,
Yeah, duh.
and they will give you a fair rate to fix it.
It's your only audio option.
Only.
Soundimages.com.
If you're in Cincinnati, hit up Sound
just
Images.
call and say, like, is Adam there?
Even if you're not in
He's probably not
Cincinnati.
busy.
You guys do remote stuff
Just
all the
come
time.
hang out.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Come drink
Yeah.
some
I mean,
bourbon.
I wish I could see my clients face to face
Yeah.
at some point in time, but
Sure.
a
And
lot
just
of
so you
times
know,
they're
if
an
you
email.
do come by the studio, we stash all the bourbon in Studio B to the right of the soundboard.
I know.
And there's like a gold mine of bourbon.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Don't take it all. You
Okay.
can taste it, but don't take it all.
Some.
So I have got something exciting to share. Well, I think people already know. We've kind of tweeted it out.
Go ahead.
The Filmmakers Drinking Bourbons T-shirts are going to be available like now.
That was my. What are you excited
Oh,
about?
I'm sorry. I'm
No, it's
excited.
okay.
I was so excited I couldn't wait for
we
the
can
question.
share it. We'll share it. We'll share it.
I'm so excited. So if you guys love the show, if you're on set and you want to promote this, we've got a sweet hand lettering T-shirt that says Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon, designed by
Leo.
designer Leo Gomez,
Fantastic.
and he's out of Florida. He's in Fort Lauderdale, I think.
Yeah.
And you can do that. Go to fdbpodcast.com, click on store, and that'll tell you how to make the order. We're new to this, so we're keeping it real simple. We're very personal about this deal, so we don't have an e-cart shop and all that jazz set up just yet. So
You'll get an email back promptly.
we'll set it up. We
Yep.
know how to do deals. We're gonna make this happen.
Yeah. But $25 gets you a black hand-lettered
Dude,
FDB
it's sweet,
Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon t-shirt,
sweet shirt.
FDB apparel.
You're gonna be looking good on set.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even not on set, just like anywhere.
yeah, anywhere.
Just rock it.
It'll help you pick up ladies.
Exactly. They'll say,
We're
"What is
proven.
that?" And then you can talk about it and you'll be infinitely more cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
So, and I'm going to tease this, but chances are that we're probably going to be giving those away as well.
Yeah.
You might have a chance to win one.
Probably.
But you know what you do have a chance to win?
Can I win one?
You know what you can win?
What?
You can win a sweet coffee table book and an awesome hat
Ah,
from our friends at
Yes.
Four Roses Bourbon.
Yes. Each week, one person will win. You just have to enter the contest at FDB Podcast, at Four Roses Bourbon, all spelled out, and hashtag FDB giveaway.
And why is that?
Because that's how we do it.
Yeah, but what is going on this month?
This month, all month,
Bourbon.
Heritage.
Month.
There you go. Bourbon Heritage Month. Brought to you by Four Roses, our buddies over there, Four Roses Bourbon down in Kentucky.
And Dan.
And Dan.
Gotta respect that.
He's great.
Dan the Bourbon Man.
Wealth of knowledge. He's worked with everybody
Yeah.
in the bourbon game.
And
Been doing it for a
I
while.
want to encourage everyone. I know that we're getting a little loose here on this show. We've had a lot of fun. We've talked about bourbon. We are the #2 bourbon podcast in America.
We're gunning for number one.
We are very quickly becoming a very what do you call it?
Powerhouse?
Recognized powerhouse in filmmaking podcasts.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage you, and I want to ask you. I'm not going to beg yet. I might beg.
You can ask, I'll beg.
Yeah, I would love for you guys to help us move up in that ranking. And the way you can do that is by subscribing to us on iTunes. Go to the iTunes podcast store, subscribe to Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon.
Yep.
Listen, rate, and review is what I like to say.
Yeah, a written review.
Listen, rate, and review. And right now we are 3 ratings away from having 30 ratings. We have 27 ratings. We are a 4.5-star podcast.
Wow.
I would love if you love our show out there, help us become a 5-star podcast.
Please.
We are 1.5 star away.
Yes.
Tell a friend.
1.5 star away.
Yeah,
Adam.
introduce us to other people or introduce other people to us.
If you love it like we love it, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your kids, all that stuff.
Tell your kids.
Tell
Tell your kids to listen to the Bourbon Podcast.
Let them in.
Yeah.
Let them in. And let's move that 0.5 star to a full star. Let's become a 5-star podcast. And you know what? Let's do it during Bourbon Heritage Month.
Let's do it.
Let's not wait.
No.
Because if we do it during Bourbon Heritage Month, awesome things will happen.
They will. They're already happening.
Giveaways will happen.
We can't tell you.
Fireworks.
Okay, so I'll tell you this. We have a roster
Yeah.
of guests
Unbelievable.
and companies and filmmakers lined up that it's just going to be constant quality content.
And I can tell you who's going
here
to be
on
on the
out.
show next week.
Can you?
Yeah, absolutely I can. I have that type of power.
Oh.
So next week on the show, I am going to, I got to look it up actually, but next week on
It's
the
such
show
a long list of people that we got.
is next week on the show during Bourbon Heritage Month,
Yeah.
week 2,
Yep.
are our friends all the way on the other side of the planet with Whipster.
Ooh.
The kids from Whipster, they make video
The
annotated
review.
review software, making your post-production much easier.
Oh,
Yes.
You can click right on the
Thank the
screen,
Lord.
click right on the screen and tell people
Annotate it.
what you want changed.
Yeah.
Hey, that
Makes
that little
client
red-
reviews a
yeah,
lot easier.
That little red dot over there on her face does not look so well. Can you fix that blemish? Maybe, maybe not. I
Or
don't know.
remove
Most-
this clip or boom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cut this edit. But the Whipster kids from New Zealand, which I've met them. I met them at NAB. They're
Yeah.
the dopest in the game.
Yep.
I love them. They're fun. They're super cool.
Easiest software to use. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be on the show.
That's awesome.
And I'm not going to force them into it.
No.
I feel like they'll do it out of the kindness of their heart.
Huh.
But I'm guessing they're going to give something away.
I'm not. That seems to be the
I'm
trend.
just saying.
That seems to
I'm
be the
just saying.
trend with our guests.
They
here.
might give something away.
Exactly.
And this is the type of content you're getting every week.
FTB.
Not twice a week.
No.
Not once a month,
You
like
mean-
some podcasts.
Hopefully not twice a week. I don't think
No.
we're going to keep that.
Yeah,
You mean
Not every-
bi-weekly?
Not every 2 weeks.
Bi-weekly.
But we're doing
Yeah.
it every week.
Exactly. Every
Weekly.
single week, every Friday, you get a piece of content right here on FTB Podcast.
Unbelievable.
Whether we're in the studio or on location. We haven't had to do an on location in a while.
No.
Because we've been
Well,
rocking
mainly-
this out.
But mainly because a lot of our shoots have been happening during the week, and we've been able to fit in the
state,
shows.
in
We
the
haven't,
state, yeah.
to where you're going to be traveling soon.
Yeah.
I'll be
Next-
on the beach in a
Yeah,
couple
you're
weeks.
going to be on the beach. so
Coming up is going to get rough.
Things
but
are happening.
Nice.
It'll be good. Okay, so anyway, let's get back. We've done the bourbon thing. We've done the Four Roses thing. All month is brought to you by Four Roses, but we still need to do a little bit of what we've been doing. Like, what have you been watching?
Ah, man, I've been watching Togetherness on HBO with Jason. Is it Jason Duplass, Mark Duplass? Those
Mark,
guys.
yeah.
And it's just, I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a new show, check out Togetherness. It's super funny. It's super dry and awkward, and it's sort of uncomfortable to watch. So if you're into uncomfortable, dry awkwardness, that might be where you want to go. Adam, what about you? What are you into?
Football starting back up.
Football.
Really excited about watching football again.
Football.
There you
Yes.
Who,
Yeah, it's been like a sports week, man. For me, like there was some rallycross stuff, the Red Bull rallycross stuff that was happening, and
Yep.
football. Oh, dude.
Dude, I got my fantasy
went.
draft tonight. I know.
You know what? Yeah.
Hey, can we do this, or is this trademark infringement?
Huh.
Bum 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 bum.
Well, when you do it
Not
that
if you
poorly,
screw it
it's
up
that
that
bad.
bad. It's
bum,
all right.
bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, do whatever you got to do.
Exactly.
We're all right.
As you can see, Four Roses Bourbon is doing its job right now, and we are having a good time. We're
Anyway,
all right.
okay, so you've been watching
Togetherness.
You've been watching You're Ready for Football.
Ready? Are you ready for some
Sports
football?
Zone for me right now? Yeah.
You know what I just started?
I don't know.
Netflix. Brand new.
No, dude.
It starts with an N.
Don't talk about it. You're gonna ruin it.
I'll just say the name.
I know what you're doing.
Narcos.
God, I've been waiting for this.
Unbelievable.
Is it awesome?
Watched episode 1.
The trailer looked amazing.
I got to restart it so that Kristen, my wife, can get in on the game. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm pretty much gonna be watching that tonight.
Oh, my God.
Narco?
Yeah.
Narcos.
Well, actually,
Oh, it's so good.
Really?
I'll be
Yes.
I'll be on like when I say tonight, I mean I'll actually be on like episode
You're gonna watch half the season or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
But take us and the listeners through this. Come on, sell me on this. What do we
Dude, it's
got?
just it's the whole underworld of Pablo Escobar.
Yes. So okay, so here's the
it's
premise:
dope.
is that there are two main characters, basically Pablo Escobar and a DEA agent undercover in Colombia.
And he's trying to expose it.
In the first episode, shows you how they got their start, and then you're in it. I mean, it's
You're in
intense.
it hard.
It's intense.
Which also brings
Yeah.
to mind to me another thing I'm excited about, which I saw at the preview for Straight Outta Compton, Sicario.
Yes.
I mean, it's along the same lines.
Yeah, the drug in Mexico.
And Rachel
now.
McAdams, is
yeah,
it, right?
But shot by Roger Deakins. It looks fantastic.
Unbelievable.
It looks gorgeous.
Benicio del Toro?
Is he in it?
I think so.
He might be.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, but it's who's it?
It's awesome.
That was Emily Blunt.
Maybe it's Emily Blunt.
Yeah, she's great.
I love it. I love Rachel.
Either way, shot by Deakins, and I just can't wait. He's my guy. He's my
gonna be
favorite
awesome.
DP.
It's gonna
Look
be
up
rad.
to him. You excited about anything?
No, man. I was excited about podcasts. I posted, maybe some of our listeners saw this, but I did post what I would recommend as, what I'm calling a top 5 podcasts. And I some people gave me some grief for including FDB podcast, Filmmakers Drinking Bourbon, in that, but I feel pretty confident that we're a pretty good podcast.
We are.
So to those haters, keep hating. I don't really care.
Keep hating.
Yeah.
Just keep listening,
But
and you'll see why.
If you go out, if you go on to BuzzFeed, I posted on our Twitter top 5 podcasts. So I've got some other cool podcasts on there that I think you should listen to. One of them is the Go Creative Show. It's pretty rad.
Yeah.
And then there's one that you listen to a lot.
American Cinematographer podcast.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, and there's other guys there. Check out the link. It's on our Twitter. Follow us at FDB Podcast.
Yeah, but just go to iTunes, look up filmmaking. You'll find us. We're up there, and we're just going to keep moving up. That's all we're doing.
Moving on up.
Moving on up. Anyway.
Moving on up.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything I'm excited for. It's just excited to wrap up the show.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, listeners, for hanging in there with us. This one has definitely been long and lean. But, man, we brought you Dan.
We did. We brought you Dan again. This is Bourbon Heritage Month. Right now it's, September. We're kicking it off. We got 4 weeks of Four Roses Bourbon.
It's out of control.
Yep. And so be sure to enter the FDB giveaway. Mention us at FDB Podcast, mention at Four Roses Bourbon, and the hashtag FDB giveaway, and you'll be entered for a chance to win what?
Oh, you're getting a sweet coffee table book that shows the history and the beauty of Four Roses Bourbon, along with an awesome hat. Everybody needs a good hat.
Good hat.
Everyone
Protects
needs
you
a
from
good
the Kentucky sun.
Yeah, basically Four Roses is preventing cancer.
Either way, there you go.
So, and Plyman, I believe Adam over here is going to have some awesome stuff in store for the month of September.
Oh, yeah.
Not only is he talking about ADR, but there's stuff that we don't even know about.
No,
he's bringing it to the table.
I think you're pretty much what I'm excited about every week. So,
Really?
I can't wait to hear what you say.
That feels so nice. I
After
can't
that,
wait to find out what I'm going to say. Too. It's really great. No, there's some cool stuff.
Yeah.
We've got some kind of odd technique things. I don't want to
Cool.
state the obvious.
Yeah, it's
we'll
fine.
go after.
Don't
some
give it
fun
away.
stuff.
Yeah. Keep them in the
Cool.
surprise.
And I assume at some point, maybe not September or not, but Josh will be on the show as well.
Josh.
Hutcherson.
He's probably a listener.
I love how you call him by his
Right?
first name. Josh.
He actually went to the same high school that my wife went to.
Really?
They both went to Ryle High School.
That's awesome.
She was much younger than him.
We're both from District 9, so it's pretty cool.
All right. Everybody, thanks so much
Anyway.
for listening. You guys are the best out there, the FTB community.
Be sure to go on iTunes, rate us, review us, plug us to your friends.
Pick up a shirt.
We're just going to keep bringing it.
Yeah, we don't even care.
Yeah.
So,
It's not. It's about having fun.
all right.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. Later. This podcast was recorded live at Sound Images Studio. Find out more at soundimages.com.